All right. And
Yeah.
there
Do you
they
guys need
are.
me to do a live recording on my end for local backup?
That would be wonderful.
Yes. So what we'll do is we'll each record our own on Audacity. Then I'll have a general backup as well.
As long as you can create a WAV file
Yeah,
that
and I
whatever
need
I think
to.
he uses a different program, but
Yeah, no, that's fine. Oh no.
I actually use Adobe Audition, but it is pretty
Yeah, that
much.
should be fine. You still can create a WAV file from that.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
thanks,
Yeah, I was about
Guardian
to say.
6.
definitely.
Let's see. Let's
Let me know whenever I can
Thanks,
start
Pins.
the recording, and I will begin.
I do a countdown for that. That's always kind of just how we do it.
Yep.
I know
Oh,
a
I
lot of
know.
people just start randomly, but
I totally
whenever.
understand from an editing standpoint to edit a lot of these lately, so I understand.
It's so much easier. Are you ready, Blue?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I count down 3, 2, 1, then click. So here we go. 3, 2, 1, click.
Cool.
And we are recording.
And then I will create. Yeah, go for it.
So fun thing I found out the other day while I was going through some of my old Gambit gameplay, or actually my more recent Gambit gameplay too. My mic for my stream has been my webcam, unfortunately, for this whole freaking time. And I'm like, what? Why do I sound like crap? So I went and got a really cheap, shitty $20 computer mic to plug in for my PlayStation, and I'm just going to leave my Yeti plugged in the whole time to the PC now. I'm not going to deal with it. I was switching it back and forth, and it was working fine, I thought, but no. PlayStation's a jerk.
You say that because last week, during our episode, Shadow Price actually had the wrong mic setup, so it was picking up so much background noise. So we actually had a similar thing happen.
Oh yeah, Blue got mad at me one week because we totally.
Oh, it wasn't just one week.
Botched.
It was like 2 weeks in a row, and we were because that's when we first started doing the Audacity thing, and like every time I would be getting clean, really good recordings from Green on my side, and thankfully I was making like I keep making the backups. But every time we got the Audacity, it was like it's a lot easier to edit on individual tracks. But Green would sound like she's in a scuba suit, like 50 miles below the water, and I'm like, I can't understand anything you're saying. And so yeah, I'll let Green take it from there.
To be fair, I have been scuba diving, only 30 feet down, but still, it counts.
I mean,
it
just sounded like you were in a rain barrel, and I was like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
And I was like,
I mean, for as shitty of audio as it was still cleaner than I thought it was going to be from a webcam. So
that's true.
Now, do you legitimately scuba dive?
I did, yeah. I have in the past. I live in Colorado now, so there's not exactly a whole lot of need or opportunity for it. But when Julie and I went to Hawaii, her aunt hooked us up with this scuba company that she's worked for. And we did 3 different dives while we were there, which was cool. Really, really neat. I got to see a rockfish and swim with a few different eels and stuff like that. Also found out after I got back out of the water that a shark that is lovingly referred to as Laverne was about 20 yards away from where we were diving. And it's a nice large tiger shark. So it's like, all right, so that's terrifying now that I know that I swam with a shark. It's not that bad, but it's like, that could have been bad.
But anyway. You made it and you're here, and you have a fun story to tell.
And no shark bites. No shark bites, no injuries, nothing like that. But each dive was about 45 minutes. Which is a lot of fun. If you ever get the chance to do that, I suggest it. It's an alien landscape.
That sounds like fun. I would totally do that.
I
might have to add that to my bucket list.
You know, some companies will actually allow you to get certified for a shallow dive, which is what we did. Because normally you have to take a bunch of different classes to do a deep dive. But we did just the 30 feet down, and it's still a totally different world down just 30 feet. Yes, very cool. Also, if you ever go to Hawaii, go to the Big Island, go to the island of Hawaii, not any of the touristy islands. And there is a kind of a boating expedition that is called the Fairwinds, and it takes you to Captain Cook's Cove, which is what Finding Nemo, the opening scene with all the coral and stuff, is based off of. So the shape of the cove and everything, and the shape underneath the water is identical in Finding Nemo. Super cool little Pixar fact.
That is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. You ready, Blue? How you doing over there?
Yeah. No, sorry. I'm just going to... I'm actually going to give a big shout out to Scooby and Dino to help with this one, because the timeline image that they sent, or that they've been working on, is really helpful for this particular recap.
Yeah,
so I think I
so
saw.
too.
Is Dino in chat? I thought I saw him. Yeah, there he is.
Yeah, he's there. Yeah, it has been really nice to be able to go through it a lot easier that way.
There's the link.
We're not going through every single entry, though, right? We're not doing
No. But for an overview of Calus, just to keep an idea of where where it takes place. I think it helps kind of put in perspective what's going on.
Yeah. Very true. This thing is freaking massive.
Okay, and I've got... All right, so what I'll do also is I'll create a... Oh my gosh. All right, hang on. All right, we're going to have to restart our recordings because apparently mine is breaking up. Okay, hang on. Not sure why my Audacity decided to go back.
Have you just restart the program? Sometimes it gets hiccups.
No, I was messing around with some of the channel setup, and it apparently snapped back to when... Anyways, all right, I'm sorry. Can we start over real quick on the recording piece?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, 3.
Close that. Hold on 1 second.
No worries.
Let me just rewind that. Okay, ready when you are.
3, 2, 1, click.
Thank you very much. And then I'll also I'll create a backup on my side as well for the whole thing, just in case something bugs out again. But okay, I'm green. That basically I am good to go when you are.
For top 3?
For top 3, yes, ma'am.
Awesome. Cornholio, you ready for top 3?
I'm ready.
Cool. Welcome to FFC Top 3, a show where we, your FFC hosts, count things down from 3 to number 1. Thank you for joining us this week. If you have a suggestion for top 3, hit us up in all the different locations as usual, which now we have 4 locations, I believe. The poll, Twitter, Discord, or focusfirechat@gmail.com. All those different places you can drop us a note, drop us a line of just different ideas for us that you have that you want to know. You have that burning desire to know, what does blue and green and a special guest like? I don't know how I'm going to segue out of this, but this week we're going to discuss our top 3 favorite video game soundtracks, which I think we've kind of gone over once before, but I have a different list now because, tastes are ever evolving, and I don't know, Blue, I don't know how your list is doing compared to last time, but
I don't even remember my list last time, so
hey,
I'll be honest. I let's go with it's probably different. It might not be,
probably. I mean, if Halo's on there, it's probably the same.
Yeah, I was about to say. Yeah.
But this week's special guest on top 3 is Mr. Cornholio from the Destiny Show podcast. If you have not seen or listened to that, please do. He's got some really cool stuff going on over there. But Cornholio, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be on with you guys and to talk Destiny.
For sure, for sure. You know, I'm going to throw you in the hot seat. You're going to go first for top 3. What is your number 3 gaming soundtrack?
Number 3. I'm gonna have to say Metal Gear Solid to be
Okay.
number 3.
Why is that?
Because I think the music in Metal Gear Solid is some of the coolest. And it has a very how do I say this? Very mystical feel to it.
Okay.
Very, very good soundtrack if you guys have not heard it. So I think that would be my number 3 with Metal Gear Solid.
Okay. I'm just thinking, like, I think I've not played that game, so I'm sitting here thinking Metal Gear Solid, is it like a lot of rock tunes? Is it a lot of electronica? Like I've never listened to the soundtrack. So how would you describe it genre-wise as far
I would
as
I would say it has a very rock feel to it.
Okay.
And also there's a lot of strings, a lot of intense sounds that really make you feel the game when you play.
Cool. Blue. Number 3 for you, sir.
Skyrim.
Uh-huh.
It's just mostly because like the Elder Scrolls series really, and actually Bethesda in general, now that I'm kind of thinking about it more, but like the Elder Scrolls especially does a really good job with like the immersion the immersion aspect of it. Like they've always done a really good job about kind of getting that feel. And the other nice thing about Skyrim is all of the kind of the offshoots, the covers, I guess you would call them. So like Peter Hollins and Lindsey Sterling did one that was just amazing. I'm trying, and I just blanked on the lady's name who does, but she did all of the bar songs. And
the bards, all the bard music.
Oh God, I feel so terrible because she does an amazing job with them. Makula, gosh, man, I'm gonna have to look them up. But she, like, the covers are actually even more like really emotive again, because like just the sky, especially with Skyrim, you have like that deep kind of almost chant that they do, and it's very, very unique in a way. But yeah, it's Skyrim, Oblivion, Morrowind. All of them have like their very unique, their own style, I guess you would. Malika, thank you, Pens. Yeah, Malika is, and I believe she is from South America. I think is where she's kind of focused, or she is located. But she has done an amazing. I think she has done all of the Bard songs from Skyrim, and maybe even some of them from Oblivion, if I remember correctly. But she has an amazing voice on that.
Nice. I just remember the different bard songs and just being able to sit down and hang out and listen to them. They have them up on the wiki.
Yeah, and like if you read the lyrics for them, they're really, really actually interesting. There's some that are really funny, but I mean, which is part and parcel for right. Skyrim, or for the Elder Scrolls series. But like they're also very telling about, they are actually like actual bard songs. They are telling a story. They are, they're telling the history of the people and all that. I think it's great.
Fun fact, there's one bard song that you will not hear unless you complete the main campaign.
Which I will not ever hear because my main file got bugged out on my console.
Oh, that's too bad.
And I adamantly...
The Tale of Tongues is so pretty.
I think I've heard it, but I haven't heard it in game.
Okay.
But yeah, like that was my one bone to pick with Skyrim was I got caught in a glitch where you're not supposed to kill one of the characters, and you can get caught in like a loop where you accidentally can kill, like you basically get stuck in a catch-22 mission, and if you play them in the wrong order, it messes everything up, and I didn't realize that, and I played them in the wrong order, and I have like thousands of hours into this file, and I'm like, nope, just not gonna finish this. I'll just keep doing side. I'll just go hunt down all the Thalmor. I'm equally happy doing that. So
there you go. Jeez.
It's funny because I had a similar thing happen to me both in Fallout 3 and
Yep.
Fallout New Vegas. Where I
Yeah.
got to a point and then I got stuck and I couldn't quite get out. I couldn't get to an earlier save file and I was like, I can't do this.
Well, you get
And
so invested in the particular line that you're like that story file that you played, and I'm like, I'm not doing this all over again. I made choices specifically.
I always make 2 files though. Like
Well,
I always
no.
make 2
Like,
files in Bethesda games specifically because of that. Like, even if it's like hours and hours behind, I try to keep 2 files always active.
Right, and I usually do as well. But mine, it's a known bug, and it's like, I think they fixed it in one of the later patches, but it doesn't fix it retroactively, basically. But basically, what happens is there's a mission that's like a quarter or halfway through the game that if you choose to do one way, you won't have any problems. But if you choose to do another way, it basically bugs out the rest of the mission because it asks you to kill a character that you have to then later interact with. And it was just it's a Bethesda game, it is what it is, but it doesn't like lessen my enjoyment of the series at all. But
sure. So I'm going to take us into a totally different RPG. You ready for this? My number 3 game soundtracks is actually something I'm listening to right now. It is Stardew Valley's soundtrack. And the reason why is because when I hear that soundtrack, I don't actually play the game with the audio, with the music on. My wife does. So when I hear that soundtrack, I know that she's playing a video game, which makes me incredibly happy. So Stardew Valley soundtrack is my number 3. It's actually really soothing. It reminds me of Minecraft. Like the Minecraft soundtrack is very relaxing. And instead of just like tones and stuff like that Minecraft does, it actually has a little bit more melody involved with it, which is a lot of fun. And it sounds like it could be played in a spa and fit right in. So it's really relaxing. But yeah, that's my number 3. Something a little bit more sentimental in that respects. But that takes us to number 2. Cornholio, you are up, sir.
Okay, so this one is kind of tough for me because I want to say Destiny 2 because Destiny 2 had excellent music, and I think if I say Destiny 2 is my second favorite, you guys probably could guess what my first favorite is. But it's going to be between the Mario music, and Destiny 2 because I think Destiny has some of the most epic music, and I can just zone out and listen to any track, and it's kind of become a tradition for us to like purchase the soundtrack right before the new expansion hits, and usually they would have it up on the Bungie store the night before, so we would always just listen to the music and get a feel for what we're going to be playing, the mood so perfectly.
Oh yeah, I've gone through and listened to, especially the initial soundtrack for Destiny 2. I've listened to a lot myself. Did a little bit of music lore on that, but yeah, good music there. Blue, number 2 for you.
My number 2 is actually Destiny Rise of Iron.
Ooh.
Because as much as I did not like playing that particular expansion, and I didn't play that particular expansion, the music was really well done. And that was one of the first times that I really got caught up in listening to Destiny music because, like, kind of like you, Green, I don't tend to play games with music on. I usually play my own music in the background because that's the way I kind of operate. If I'm even playing music, honestly, I often will play without any sound at all, mostly because I'm either doing something else that requires my audio to be used, or I just have been doing something else and I forgot to turn it back on.
We know.
Yeah,
like the Thorn mission, and
usually I'm podcasting. I'm podcasting during the same time. There's things.
Cornholio, have you heard about this? Like, he will do some of the hardest missions with teammates, with some of the clan, while we're podcasting. Like he did the Savathun song strike.
I did
for
the Thorn Strike, the Last Word
Oh
mission,
my god.
and what was the other
While
one
we're
we did?
recording live, you were thinking about doing not Whisper, but 0 Hour. But I told you to just
0 Hour.
stop.
0 Hour. I tried, and I was like, yeah, no, that's not gonna happen. No, what was there was Pins and Uni and I did the Wish Ender. That's the one we did
Pins
last.
and Uni, you guys are saints.
They're enablers
for putting up with him. Oh my
they're
god,
enablers.
I can't even imagine trying to run
The
through
Thorn Strike was the Thorn Strike
communication.
was the worst one because it was just it was brutally punishing if you didn't pay attention.
Oh my god. Mm-hmm.
We've gotten really good.
Those thrall came up and ran at you.
Yeah. Well, and that was actually the problem was the surprise thrall. We're always like if you don't have audio, it's really hard. But yeah, we've gotten really good at emote conversations. So yeah. But yeah, so I don't actually normally listen to I don't listen to music while I'm playing a game. If I'm not if it's an RPG, I will listen because again, kind of like that goes back to the Bethesda. It's because usually the music that's playing is indicative of what's happening. So I actually use the music as a trigger to know what's going on.
Hey, there's a bear about to attack you.
Yeah, Mason. Yeah. Oh, bears. But then but with games with Destiny, Halo, I've been playing Wolfenstein because it's on Game Pass now, Doom, all those first person shooter games. They don't tend to use music in the same fashion as RPGs, so I don't really listen to the soundtracks. So I have all the soundtracks from Destiny, and when I got the Rise of Iron soundtrack, it was really good. I just really liked the music. Which is kind of funny because I could not stand the mechanics.
Yeah, is a thing. So we're gonna have a 3-way Destiny at the number 2 slot because
yeah, probably.
My number 2 is not actually a soundtrack per se; it's a single that came out.
Cabal
It's
Stomp?
the Whisper. No, although I really do like that song. That song is really well done. If you know rhythmically what they're doing, that's really well done. But the Whisper mission, that music, the electronic music for that mission, that is actually one I will turn on in game if I run it. Because I love that music. Well, I like electronic music. I like the way that they incorporated a lot of the high tones and low tones with everything going on that you're doing. You talked about how RPGs kind of are indicative of what's happening. Whisper kind of almost has that feel to it. There's audio cues in Destiny are the end of a Crucible match, you have the audio cue. The end of a Gambit match, you have an audio cue. Not a whole lot of other ones are just built into the game normally because you're not going to hear an audio cue every time a thrall comes around the corner. That's just not what's going to happen. But the Whisper mission has some really brilliant building moments, as well as this ethereal, mysterious area that not only speaks of the lightness of the Vex, but the deepness of the dark that you're dealing with Zol, which I really, really love. That's one I actually have downloaded on Spotify. So Whisper of the Worm single for me is my number 2. Which brings us to our number 1s. Cornholio?
Easy for me. I'm gonna say Destiny. The entire soundtrack was so magical and so epic. And you had so many different styles of tracks. You had the Vex, and then you had my favorite track. It's actually also my favorite strike in the game, and that specific song, kind of that Trent Reznor feel, very very cool, very rocky, and I really enjoyed that whole strike. The entire final boss encounter was just so awesome and epic, and the way that music came together with the entire encounter was just so good.
Yeah. Just everything from Marty and the team who has also helped with everything, Salvatore and everybody. There's been some really good stuff put out. a lot of diversity in the music too. It's not just the same thing over and over. Blue, number one for you, sir.
The original Halo.
Ooh. Okay.
Mostly because, again, the emotional connection that I have to that, but also because it was probably one of the first times that I was introduced to a video game soundtrack that incorporated something that's not normally in video game soundtracks, which is the Benedictine chants. And it was done very well, and it was just it's just, yeah, it's like the whole thing of the emotional connection, the history there. It just, yeah, for me, that's easily the number one thing. It's honestly even just the single track for the menu. That opening track for Halo, the original Halo, is just, it's super powerful from an emotional standpoint. It brings back tons of memories for those of us who, grew up playing that. And then also it just is very, very telling. Like, everyone hears it and they immediately know what game it is. Like, it's something that's just, Halo has done a ton for the first person shooter space. And that's just another thing that is just very distinctly unique to that particular game series.
That's actually my one major regret from teaching, is not having a guy group. I have the sheet music for that opening.
Oh yeah.
I have.
Oh wow.
I have sheet music for it. Because people have transcribed that many times over.
Yeah.
You can find it at music notes easily. But it's Gregorian chant, which is yeah, which is another thing. Like, if you're a music major in college and you want to freak out your music history teacher, play him the Halo soundtrack, because it is very similar to the Gregorian style. There's very few differences in it, because the Gregorian style generally is a singular line, whereas there are some harmonies and stuff going on within the Halo soundtrack, but it is very, very interesting as far as the musical history breakdown of it. That's just me nerding out in a totally different way. But yes, I wish I would have had a guy group that could pull that off, but high school boys aren't going to be able to pull off the bass very easily.
You have to have some powerful bass to do that, to do it justice, at least.
At least the schools that I taught in, much smaller schools, but anyway. So I feel like I'm going to really let everybody down with my number one, because it's not Bungie related at all. My number one soundtrack that I love to listen to is actually not a soundtrack that is available. It is a YouTube track from a video game. It is Trials Evolution, which was an old BMX bike game. So the Trials Evolution soundtrack had elements of it reminds me a lot of Rocket League, but better music than Rocket League has. Like, I love the Rocket League soundtrack as well, but Trials Evolution just has a lot of memories of me learning how to rage without throwing a controller, because you had to be so exacting in a lot of the things that you were doing if you were trying to pass certain maps. But the soundtrack was always really, really interesting, fun, good running music, nice pacing music. But there's not a single standout track on that one, though, unfortunately. Did you guys have any and also kind of things? Like, you almost put it on your list, but not quite?
I kind of do, actually.
I did not, so I'll let Cornelio, take that one.
Go for it.
Okay, so there was a soundtrack that first leaked and later was released by Bungie called Music of the Sphere. And it was the prequel to the original Destiny, and I think that music was so good.
They have released it actually now. It's been released on vinyl. It's really hard to get a hold of, but it's out on vinyl, and I believe I know where to get a hold of digital tracks, but I don't know if they have it digitally released officially.
I was about to say, I don't think the digitals are official, correct?
I think you can get the digital if you bought the vinyl.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say because I've kind of tried to keep an eye to see if they're gonna release a digital version because I don't care about vinyl, which I know might be a triggering statement for some people out there, but I don't have a record player, so I'm like, all right, whatever. But yeah.
That was totally my excuse for not buying it because I thought about it, but it was like $100 plus another like 20 between and shipping, and I was like, is that really worth it? I mean, I kind of already have a version of it downloaded that came out before they officially released it, so it was a toss-up. But if they ever come out with a digital copy of it, I will definitely purchase it because I think the music is really epic and it was a real treat to. So yeah, it was really fun.
It's really interesting to do a side-by-side playthrough of the music of the Spheres and the original Disney soundtrack, because you find the moments that were carried over into the actual game, which is kind of fun. But that whole thing is its own can of worms. And I think we should start wrapping up top 3. Thank you guys for joining us this week. Next week, we are doing top 3, or not next week. It's a couple weeks from now because next week is Guardian Con.
Correct.
Or technically this week that we're in is Guardian Con. And then the week after that is Extra Lore when we're doing this next top 3, correct?
Correct.
So that would be July 12th. And we are doing top 3 video game stories, right?
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, there's a lot of moments. There's a lot of sad moments. It might be a sad story. It might be a sad evening.
I'm trying to restrict myself on that one because I'm like, I'm going to try to do like overall stories instead of moments because geez, if I did moments, I would I mean, I don't think we would be here for like 4 hours probably for between the two of us.
The final freaking Halo mission and where's Cortana?
4. Yeah. Yeah. That's spoilers. That one's gonna be probably on there.
It's like 10 years old. Anyway,
it doesn't matter. No. Spoilers for next week.
Oh, top 3.
The next episode.
Yeah. All right, man. That list is gonna be hard to put together. Thank you, Cornholio, for joining us for this one. We will see you definitely in the episode coming up. Thank you guys for listening. As always, have a wonderful week. And remember, everybody loves a list.
Yay!
And thank you for having me.
All right. So, and then I'm going to stop this other one, and then we'll start up this other one.
Stretchy.
Start a new recording, or do we keep?
No, just keep this one going. Yeah.
Okay, keep it going. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I have a just ignore my rambling for a moment.
He's doing the backup tracks as far as the other switch over. Yeah, Trials Evolution has some really great music. I wish they released a soundtrack though, like Rocket League did. Underrated. That game was so good though. Although Trials Fusion sucked. Just saying that. The 3rd edition, because it was Trials Evolution, and then Trials Fusion. Trials Fusion was terrible.
Do. All right. I will be right back. Hang on 1 second.
Okay.
Oh man. How's chat tonight, guys? How's everybody in chat? First time been able to attend this live. Big hype. Hey, Sumo, thank you for joining us. We are in the in-between section. We just finished recording top 3. We're getting ready to start the main show as soon as Blue gets back. Thank you for joining us. I think Blue's getting a coffee refill. This is a good time to do that. The other thing, Cornholio, is if you need to jump out of chat at any point, like to go potty break or anything like that, just dump a note in the private chat, and we'll just continue on until you get back, and like just let us know when you're back in chat in the Discord chat, so we know if we need to ask or include you into a conversation, we can.
Awesome. Yep, we actually do the same thing. So yeah,
awesome.
Perfect.
Awesome. Making pizza, kids. Ooh, homemade pizza is best. Though it's a very important question of what kind of pizza, though. Because my sister
pizza.
fights
That sounds really.
Yeah, really good.
Do you guys have a favorite kind of pizza?
You know, if I order pizza, I'm really lame and I just get pepperoni. But the pizza, I absolutely, because my favorite pizza to order is actually not something available in Colorado for some freaking reason, because, Colorado Pizza Hut sucks. In Kansas, they have taco pizza, and it's fucking delicious.
That sounds awesome.
Mm-hmm. It's super yummy.
But Minsky's barbecue chicken pizza is really good too.
I don't like barbecue.
Fair enough.
Buffalo chicken pizza is all right.
Yeah, Minsky's just has like really good random pizzas. I'll just be completely honest. Like
there's a place out here called Toppers. They do a tater tot pizza.
Yeah. We've had a couple Toppers pop up around here. It always confuses me because all of them drive Jeeps, and they always have like they're Toppers, and I'm like, wait, what? Like, because they all have like the special made hard tops on their Jeep Wranglers, and so every time I see the bumper sticker, my sister has a Jeep Wrangler, and they can customize the wahoo out of these things. And I'm like, I always am like, why is there a pizza picture on a camp? I'm so and then I'm like, oh, that's right. It's a pizza place. Like, it's just to me, when I see a Jeep Wrangler advertising something, it's always been like, no, this is where you get this piece of your equipment,
Yeah, for sure. All right. Let me switch out. I may have caused Julie to close the bedroom door instead of me closing my office door, so let me go and switch that out real quick.
That's fine.
So when I was in Sweden, there was this really interesting variety that I haven't found it here in the States. It had arrow meat on it and tzatziki sauce.
Oh, that sound on a pizza? That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's so good. That's like the one thing that I really miss about being in Sweden.
So they made it like a regular pizza, but it was with basically a gyro on a pizza.
Exactly, and instead of using tomato based, they use essentially the tzatziki sauce.
Tzatziki sauce. Oh my god,
amazing.
I'm going to home make one of those things now, because I have a place down here that has they have tzatziki sauce that they make, but they have it in a mix in fresh jalapenos into it.
Tzatziki is amazing.
Oh my god, I'm gonna message Anna that we're doing that.
We planted a bunch of different herbs and stuff like that in our planters up front, and we planted mint. We planted mint in a very smart way, because mint will take over any garden. Fair warning, if you're not a gardener, mint will steal your garden, period.
Yes, it will.
We planted it in a planter and then buried the planter into the ground so it's contained. And we have a ton of mint, and that's one of the things that Julie is planning on making, is some tzatziki here pretty soon with it.
Mint, chives, parsley, like a lot of the herbs, and strawberries, because strawberries, if you're trying to grow them, and they find, like, first off, they're nearly impossible to get to actually grow. But if you get them to grow, they just destroy things. They're just like, it's my garden now. It's like, oh my god.
In Indonesia, Pizza Hut is more of a noodle place, but they have very different ideas of pizza, kind of like that Greek one you're talking about. That's cool.
You be nice to strawberries.
I mean, strawberry plants are, depending on the climate that you're in, because here they grow really well. like roses grow really well here for some reason, and I've never seen a rose bush, like a healthy one, in Southwest Kansas where I'm from.
Yeah, we have our backyard is getting taken over by wild strawberries. So it's like we have a large collection of squirrels who are very happy about our backyard.
Blackberries are evil, though, blackberry plants, and we're going to keep talking about this unless we start the main show, by the way. That's true.
Okay. I learned that from Peppa Pig. Blackberry bushes are evil. And on that note...
Prickly.
And on that note, let me pull up... Because apparently of all the pages that I have open, the one that I was expecting, I do not have open. All right. Let me make sure I have my date right. There we go. All right, cool. Welcome back for episode 173 of Focus Fire Chat, recorded live on June 30th over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. As always, want to give a big shout out to our live chat here with us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us once again, and also for being flexible with us this weekend. Our topic for tonight's episode is going to be a look at Calus, the Emperor of the Cabal. But first, let's run through a quick introduction of those on the show with us tonight. As always, this is your host, Blue Crew 86. Next up, we have our own master of social media, the one and only Green-Eyed Music Lover. Green, I hope you're doing well. How's the week treated you so far?
Good. I want to make a big shout out to Mr. Penn's Halo for convincing me to get a battery backup for my PC. Because when that lightning strike hit Friday night, because we were loading into the show, I was in chat with Cornholio, and that lightning strike hit and knocked the power out of my entire block. The city rec center across the street from us was completely out. Everything was knocked out, but my PC was still on. So thank you for that. I did not lose any information. I didn't lose any programs or anything like that. My PC's not fried. It's super happy. I'm really excited about not having to replace anything. So yay! So if you
she managed to save all the whips that have been sent to her.
No. Between you, Wicked, and Raz.
Wicked's been going.
Wicked's the one who's been making the memes, but Raz has been making stickers. I know she has. She told me there was a sale on freaking vinyl at the store the other day, and she bought a bunch. And I'm like, oh no, I am so. You guys are. I'm the new beard, guys, with the grumbling.
Oh man. Well, finally in the hot seat as guest co-host, we have a good friend of ours, Cornholio. Cornholio, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing awesome. I'm so excited to be here to hang out with you guys and talk Destiny, and I'm really excited to be here, and I appreciate you guys having me.
Oh, definitely. Just to kind of give everyone an idea of where you come from. You know, what's your? I know you do the Destiny show. What else? Where is that located, and where can people find you, and all that good stuff?
Yes. So we have a website at destinyshow.com. We're also available on all major podcasting platforms between Apple, Google, Spotify, Podbean, and all those good platforms. And also we'll be going live on Twitch this coming weekend. You've actually given us some really great advice that helped us to finally get here. So really exciting to finally go live, and we're going to be on this Wednesday at 6.
Nice.
Awesome.
Nice.
So very excited about that.
So, Cornholio, I've got 2 very important questions for you.
I'm ready.
What class do you main in Destiny? This is the first one. It's an easy one.
That's going to have to be Hunter, because anybody who knows me knows that my jumping skills are less than perfect. And I struggle quite a bit with the other characters whenever it comes to jumping, especially on the Titan. I mean, you can make so many blooper videos. Yeah. Oh, it's bad. I've actually been getting a lot better with my Warlock, in controlling my jumps with that, but my hunter jumps, that's the best one. And where's Bones of Ao? I've been praying for it to come back for so long now, and
I don't know. Stompies do pretty well when it comes to like the speed. You can get some pretty long distance jumps going with that guy. All right, question number 2. And this one is definitely not a standard Destiny question, but we asked this last week with Jopa, and I thought it was kind of funny, and I thought it was really interesting. Since you main a hunter, what song would you say would be your hunter soundtrack for while he's doing things in Destiny? Like if you had to pick one song to be your like soundtrack for everything, what song would that be?
That's really interesting. Let's see. I would probably have to go with Untold Legends in Destiny.
Okay.
Because that song is so epic, and it almost tells the story of this perseverance, and that's how I see the hunter character as. He's like always kind of the underdog who overcomes the greatest odds, and I really love that song as well. So
For sure. All right, Blue, I'm done torturing him a little bit.
Well, I'm going to hand it back to you anyways because, we had a question of the week this time around, and I'm curious how the fallout of that one came about.
I'm actually really impressed, but we have a tie.
What?
Yeah, it 230 votes and we managed a tie. I don't know. I'm a little flabbergasted, but the question was, is Emperor Calus still alive, hiding behind the curtain like the Wizard of Oz, or is he now incorporeal and maintaining his Leviathan other means, which was like the very general question. The 4 options you had to choose from was he is now a robot, he's the shadow form, he's still alive / hiding, or he's dead and others are controlling him or controlling everything. And the tie spot happened between he's the shadow form and he's still alive. So people are really split out of 230 votes. They're really split on whether or not the shadow form, if you never played Leviathan Raid, like the basic Leviathan Raid, when we go into, I'm trying to think of the name of the encounter. It's the very last encounter against Calus. You go into the Shadow Realm, and you have to jump over the little barriers, and you have to call out the symbols that are on his head. That's the shadow form that a lot of us are talking about. Is that Calus? Is that his true form at this point, or is he still alive? And people are really, really 50-50 on it at this point now. 12% did say they think he's dead, and 4% says he's a robot, but really it was 42% to 42% as far as shadow form or alive, which is really interesting. As far as comments on it, we had somebody who said he's an Ahamkara, which is another interesting thought in Spinfoil that I've seen. There's somebody who made Dredgen Bimagen may have put probably the most hilarious response. Calus might ask, are any of us really alive? What does alive even mean, man? Maybe we're all just a simulation. Then the Vex raise their hands and nod their heads, and we are all sad because they won. But there were some really interesting thoughts. Some people think he has his own throne world at this point. Some people think that he's somewhere in between being incorporeal and being controlled by somebody else, which I thought was an interesting thought. But most people were really just unsure. Some people think that he has his own ascendant plane, which is all right. We've had multiple characters go into their own ascendant realm-esque, Mara and whatnot. What's his face? Floaty ball of light. Toland. Toland has his own miniature pocket, so it's possible. Even Mindbender has his own throne world.
Dino's breaking me.
What?
Calus is Krang, Emperor of the Cabal.
Oh no. Oh no.
Because he's the floating head.
Mm-hmm. Oh, God. If you don't know who Krang is, it is from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
God, it's amazing.
It's the guy who is the brain inside of the robot.
The stomach.
Yeah, the brain is in the stomach area. Yeah, it's
Shredder.
Oh my gosh, derailed.
Oh my God.
That's great.
Oh, that makes me happy. Krang, Emperor of the Cabal. Oh, well. I'm going to try to segue into show notes.
Yeah, I don't know how. I don't know.
So, before we start talking about Krang, the Emperor of the Cabal, let's run through our standard show notes real quick, and then I'm going to do some... I have actually a little bit of an interesting Lost lore before we jump fully into the spin foil that I have a feeling tonight's going to be full of. So, yeah, so Lost lore this week. I figured, actually, I was looking... I don't know. For me, the Cabal tend to be more heavily than any of the other races, really, to be kind of referencing Roman or the other ancient cultures. And Calus is really actually no different than any of them. Calus, when you read about Calus and about like how all he was revolutionizing, culturally and military and like the concept of even to a degree equality within the Cabal empire at the time, you actually can start seeing a lot of similarities between. I've kind of come down to three major figures in the ancient world, in our world, that I kind of get a vibe that Calus is a bit of a blend of, and those are Cyrus the Great. Another one that most people will be somewhat familiar with is Caligula, and then also another one that I don't know if people might not be so familiar with him, but it's a Byzantine emperor who goes by the name Constantine the Ninth, Monomachos. Now, the reason why I kind of put all these kind of in together is Caligula is kind of, he's a little bit obvious. Calus has a very, oh gosh, there goes chat. Caligula is, yeah, no, I kind of did. Caligula is kind of one of those controversial figures. He's not especially that great of a leader, but what Caligula is very well known for is hedonism. He was very, very kind of off-kiltered about just like embracing the power of the emperor, and just really kind of did anything luxurious, anything that led to more pleasure. Caligula was very much a supporter of. Some of the majorly ambitious construction projects within Rome during, I think it was about the 37 to 41 AD was when he was in control of the empire. And there were a number of just immense construction projects that he kind of started. And that was mostly because he was all about showing off the wealth and showing off everything that he has amassed as an emperor. It's also noted he really didn't rule for very long. I think it was a grand total of about 3 years, a little bit less than 4 years, basically. So 3 years, 10 months or so. And in that time, in the first 6 months, he was actually pretty reasonable. After that, there's a lot of theories as to why, but he kind of went insane. There's ideas that it might have been a disease. There's ideas that he just kind of something snapped mentally, but he kind of went off in the deep end as far as that. But the big thing with Caligula was the fascination with hedonism and the focus on the present. And you see that with Calus. Like, Calus is very much focused on here and now and making sure that everyone is, quote, air quote, happy and enjoying life because of his convinced, his his oh man, I just blanked on where I was going, what I was going to say. Because of his conclusion that everything is going to end, he has basically doubled down on the hedonistic way of life of enjoying the present. Now, if you look at Constantine Monomachos, you basically see really a very big surge of political and military presence. He is responsible for a lot of changes in his time period. He basically was very, very big on... Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. He pretty much changed a lot of the structure of the time that he was in charge of. And that's very similar to Cyrus the Great, which is, I believe Destinopedia makes the comment about Cyrus the Great. Now, Cyrus the Great is going to be a really interesting figure, and I really encourage anyone to look into any of these three. But Cyrus was really recognized for human rights, politics, and military strategy. And one of the things that he did was he also managed to run probably one of, if not the largest empire the world has seen. So this was prior to the Roman Empire. This is way, way, way back, 600, 530 BC. And so he was a pretty big deal at the time. And one of the things that he did was he kind of set into this place, this way of assimilating cultures, in that he respected the customs and religions of everywhere that he conquered, as long as they didn't negatively impact his own. So, he basically, which is very common in the Roman Empire, you see that a lot with the Roman style. He's actually kind of one of the first that kind of revolutionized that concept of, like, just because you take over a culture or take over an area doesn't mean that you have to completely raze it to the ground and, rebuild yours. He was very big on the whole, hey, no, you are just as important as us and all that. Now, he also was very iron shod in his way of rule, but as long as you didn't cross it, it's like, hey, we don't have a problem here. But yeah, so and you see a lot of similarities between Calus and Cyrus in the focus on equality, on politics, on military strategy, being much more, I wouldn't say kind, but much more fair. Calus,
diplomatic.
Yeah, in Calus you also see the removal of the focus on kind of the Gaul figure, the Red Legion, culture of the hard, the Praetoriate. Wow, the Praetoriate. When Calus got rid of them and released the people basically, and allowed the legionnaires to become citizens, and all this, kind of movement of socializing, a lot of that. Cyrus was very similar in the way that he kind of allowed different influences to have an influence in his empire. Like he equally allowed both the Eastern and Western civilizations to influence his empire, and so there's a very, very similar thing there. But yeah, I mean, so just from a historical standpoint, I find it interesting the kind of the combinations of different figures that we see within the presentation of Calus and within the Cabal in general. But, with Gaul, you have definitely a much more militaristic presentation. With a Praetoriate before Calus, you had a much more more military presentation. And then Calus kind of was like this, oh, hey, let's relax a bit. We have an empire. Let's actually enjoy the spoils of these wars that we've fought, or that we've seemed to have fought. And it's not necessarily that he rested on the laurels of those who came before him, but he focused, Calus kind of focused more on education, on, the social equality of everybody, and, the building up of the knowledge and all that. And that's where I see a lot of the Cyrus the Great and Constantine more so. Whereas Gaul and the Midnight Coup group, that overthrew him, would argue that he was more of a Caligula. That he was focused completely on the hedonism and he had gone too soft. So there's just a couple different ways you can kind of look that way. But like I said, I just wanted to really quick kind of give a nod to some of the really cool historical little tidbits that Calus himself seems to have.
I mean, I think it's pretty fair to say that the majority of people who know Calus would compare him to Caligula. Even Guardians would compare him to Caligula without having a bunch of the lore and like diving into it. He just seems kind of a slob.
Mm-hmm. Well, and yeah, because we see Calus as post experience of the void, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the important thing to remember about when you're talking about like the early, and I think this is a good transition point to kind of talk about, you know, the overall timeline, right, of Calus. And Calus, you know, he is responsible for giving what's kind of referred to as the People's Revolution. And so what that kind of goes into is prior to Calus and his taking over, the Praetoriate, which was a group of military strategists, military leaders, you know, generals and all this stuff, they were in charge of the entirety of the Cabal Empire. And Calus was responsible for kind of leading a revolution and taking power away from them. And not only taking power away from the Praetoriate, he actually exiled all of them, if not killed them. And what he did was then he took all the treasures that this small group had hoarded and kept from the general people, and he spread it among the people. So he immediately, you know, you get this sense of like he immediately becomes a very, very big popular figure because he is giving back. You know, it's basically if a politician ever led up or ever kept the promise, right? You know, you'd be a very big deal, or she would be a very big deal, you know, because he leads this people's revolution. He shuts down the Praetoriate. He frees the people basically from this military rule. And then he proceeds to give all the treasure back to the people. And then he goes on and he says, okay, the army, you have not been allowed to be citizens of this empire. You are now allowed to become citizens of this. So the legionnaires, those rank and file soldiers, are now, you know, allowed to become part of what they have been fighting for. You kind of get the sense of like they were a slave army. It not really, but you get a sense that they were an army that was basically mercenaries. They were not allowed to enjoy the benefits of all their work. And so Calus goes, no, you have fought for this, and so you kind of you get this. And so and that's where you kind of get the introduction of Calus. Now, this is all before Calus encounters the void and encounters, you know, whatever it is that he encounters, whether that's the Nine, whether it's the darkness, the Ahamkara, whatever it is, you know, and Dino in chat, it's opulence for all. You know, it's basically, we have these massive treasure stores. Let's invest them in the people.
Right. It's a very populist viewpoint. Give it back to the populace. So as far as like his whole coming to power, though, I know you talked about him overthrowing the Praetoriat and everything, but the scenes that we have in some of the weapon lore of him after he's basically set himself up as emperor, it's all from his perspective, but it's very, he literally shows up into the Senate and has a circle of his own guard around him and is just like, from this day forward, I shall take up all the empire in my embrace, for I am the father of empires, as I am father to all creation. I will suffer no tired institution nor petty bureaucrat to stand between me and my children. I am the perfect loving God, and all will tremble to know me. It's like, he's not just setting himself up as emperor.
He's setting himself up as a god.
He's setting himself up as an emperor god. The combination of the two. Go for it, Blue.
And I think that ties back into before. So that was alone as a god entry that Green, I think you were reading. I think the other really important entry that you want to read is Legend of Acrius, because this is a commentary from Tyra about the Legend of Acrius, and the Legend of Acrius is it's very similar to the Legend of, God, I just blanked on the name.
Icarus.
Icarus, thank you. Well, Icarus, and also it's not Perseus, it's oh my gosh, I feel terrible. It's the kid, the son of Helios, who steals his father's chariot. Oh gosh, I feel terrible. Anyways, it's the same legend basically, and the quote is that in the Cabal legend, a hero seeks to possess the sun. He succeeds, and then he becomes emperor. So it's and Tyra's comments and notes on it is like, that's the entire myth. It basically is like, they basically said, hey, I want the sun. The Cabal takes it and becomes the first emperor of the Cabal. Whereas with our myth of Icarus and the other one that I'm blanking on, they end not in a very, very good thing. Icarus dies. I'm going to have to look this up because this is bugging the crap out of me.
Okay.
They both end in very bad Phaethon, thank you. Gosh, man, Phaethon is basically Phaethon is the story of a son of Helios, who is the god who is responsible for the rising and setting of the sun. And he steals his father's chariot, which is the sun. And in stealing it, he actually threatens to put the entire earth on fire, and Zeus is basically forced to kill Phaethon in order to save the earth. And so because of the hubris that Phaethon had, similar to Icarus, because of that, he dies. He's punished for that. Icarus dies because he flew too high. He didn't pay attention to the composition of his wings, the false wings that his father had made for them. And the wax melts when they get too close to the sun. Whereas with the legend of Acrius, he gets the sun. He actually takes the sun, and then he becomes the emperor. So he doesn't get punished for it. He actually gets rewarded for it. And Tyra goes on to say that, the linguistic analysis of the Cabal language and its many dialects, while it's incomplete, they do not appear to have a word for the concept of hubris. So if you take that understanding and then apply it to alone as a god, it kind of goes hand in hand, right?
Right.
They are a culture that rewards that sense of hubris. That sense of, I hesitate to call it arrogance, but that sense of self-entitled confidence. That is something that if they can pull it off, and that's a big qualifier, but if they can pull it off, it's a reward. It's understood that, yes, you are worthy of that. It's basically, it is basically Roman Empire on steroids, because even in the Roman Empire, you had a degree of understanding of where hubris could lead. Here, that is not the case.
Right. So we also have examples of, for as happy and benevolent as Calus acts, he's not exactly the most kind in some respects to those people who have wronged him by any stretch of the imagination. Mob justice is a really good example of that. Cornholio, would you mind reading that one card for us? I put the link in our chat for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just pull that up. I had the other tab open.
While he pulls that up real quick, Dino made the comment too, and I kind of meant to say this. The myth of Icarus is really well known for the flying too high concept, but what you also have to keep in mind is that inside that legend, inside that myth, Icarus was warned both to not fly too high but also not fly too low.
Because they were
because
trying to escape the island, right?
correct, yeah, they were trying to escape the labyrinth, and in doing so, they created wings made of feathers and wood and wax. And the way that they were constructed, the wax would melt if it got too close to the sun, it got too hot, but also the feathers would absorb too much water and become too heavy. So if you flew too high, you would melt and you would fall and die. But if you flew too low, too close to that water, you would take on too much weight and the wings would not work. And so you would also fall. So there was a Goldilocks zone, if you will, in which he and his father could fly. So Icarus was, the warning wasn't just don't fly too high. It was also don't fly too high, but don't fly too low.
It's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. 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 All right, so mob justice. You got the tab going?
Got it opened up, yes.
Awesome.
Okay, so it goes like this. I never thought of my palace as a true court. The only throne that mattered to me looked down upon the public commons. From that seat, there was no barrier between me and the glorious, adoring mob. I was their father. They were my children. It was there that I brought the corrupt to suffer the people's justice. How they cried as I threw their riches to the crowd. It amused me to see the dawning of realization in their eyes. There would be no safety for them, as there had been no safety for those they had been to suffer. One by one, I tossed those weeping fools to the people. The mob let out a great cry of joy and stripped them of their robes, tore the jewelry from their bodies.
It's so creepy. It's so creepy. It's the mob mentality turned up to 11. Mm-hmm. Calus is not a nice guy.
I would, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of, it doesn't surprise me. And I say that because if you look historically, even within our own cultures and our own history, even within somewhat modern times, mob justice is not something that's uncommon.
Right.
And if you look at, I kind of mentioned this, I think, in one of the earlier episodes, but Dan Carlin has a podcast episode that is called Painfotainment. Very, very well done episode, very long episode, and not for young listeners. I will preface that. But he goes through the history of public executions and why, through the transitions of eras, the public executions actually got pretty grotesque before they kind of were cut off. And if you go back and if you go and listen to that particular episode, he actually talks about why it is that the human mind in large groups has this weird fascination with the pain that is involved in a public execution, because public executions were historically were very, very political in nature. They were very, very political in what they were trying to teach to the mobs. Now, whether or not that lesson was actually implied or was actually transferred is actually the question, because for the long part, especially during the medieval era, that was not the case. People actually enjoyed public executions. They actually went to them as entertainments. They would tailgate at them. And so, and then if you look in the Roman Empire period of time, you also have the gladiatorial games. The Colosseum was actually one of the largest places that public executions took place. There was actually a set period of the day that they would have public executions, and people would gravitate to those. And so
make bets and
right, yeah. Well, the betting was more on the gladiatorial components, but there were some. It depended on how they were getting executed, to be fair, because it wasn't not all the same. Depending on the crime and all that. But yeah, there was, but one of the things that Carlin actually points out was that the executions in Roman times, they took place over the lunch break. So people would have their lunch and they would go to the Colosseum to eat their lunch and watch executions. So I mean, let that sink in for a second.
I have a really, really weird connection to modern day fascination. It reminds me of demolition derbies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Obviously, no one dies in a demolition derby, but the destruction of cars, just like somebody just utterly beating the snot out of another person's car with your own car, is very reminiscent of like the crowd feeling. I don't know if have you ever been to a demolition derby, either of you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have not been to a derby.
It's really interesting because you have that race feeling too. Like races kind of have that as well, but there's there's almost a slight bloodlust and energy in the atmosphere because it's very different than a race. Because race, you have generally a very clear outcome that's going to happen as far as like the winner and whatnot. But with the demolition derby, there's much destruction.
There's a clear outcome in a demolition derby.
There is, but at the same time, like,
you just don't know which one's going to walk away.
Right. You can have a car that looks utterly trashed, but because of the way that the frame is built, because of the heavy body of it, it may actually be in better shape than the other car. And of course, there's things like there's possibility of fire and stuff like that in a demo derby, and there's things that they do to try to stop that. But the energy of the crowd is very different at a demolition derby than it is at a traditional race. And it cracks me up because it reminds me of the Colosseum aspect and the fact that you're literally watching two people beat each other up.
Well,
right?
I mean,
more of the time it's two people.
Look at the whole concept of MMA.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the blood sport to be blunt, that's what it is. It's a blood sport. You know, you have football. Football is really any contact sport is, and I always point out the funny fact that football stadiums are ironically the same shape as the Coliseum. You know, then there's also the whole thing of hockey. Yeah, hockey. But even like even what you were saying, like regular races. Mm-hmm. You ever see a regular race where there was a wreck? People go crazy. People perk up. Like it's just one of those things that it's a triggering event for humanity in general. I think it's very fascinating psychologically as well.
It's almost an adrenaline rush, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're basically living. It's a way of living vicariously through the people on the field.
Yeah.
The other thing that they would do that I find really entertaining was they would do plays in the Coliseum during the gladiatorial games. They would do actual plays. And whereas, you know, in today's world, we see the action movies and, you know, it's kind of a suspension of disbelief because, you know, those people aren't actually getting killed. The plays in the gladiatorial Coliseums, you know, that wasn't the case. They were actually getting killed. Like they would have reenactments of battles and the battles were real. You know, that was the whole thing. But again, kind of going back to what you're talking about with like the demolition derby, there's just that sense of like that sense of need for that. And actually that's kind of I'm going to segue that back into there was a question in chat from Pre-Built Sumo. They say, is it really mob justice that Calus did in that scene? It seems that he had already deemed them guilty as judge and was just sentencing them to their punishment to be thrown to the crowds they had wronged.
So it's really, yeah, I mean, that's the whole point of the mob justice in Calus's eyes, though, is he's going to stir the crowd to a frenzy with the injustice of everything and then just toss them down. And what happens. It's still mob justice because the mob is enacting the justice. He's already sentenced them, though.
Right. And so, and I think the thing here too is like, you know, mob justice is basically a form of public killings, really. It's like, you know, it's basically where a large group of people takes justice or takes a action into their own hands. So you would see this usually being in a lynching party or something like that. But at the same time, though, what's even more along my lines of thought is what would happen if he threw someone to the mob and they didn't kill him? Like what happens there? Because Calus is dictating that in his eyes they are the corrupt ruler, the corrupt politicians that have kept all this stuff away from the people. But if he threw them into the group or into this mob, and that particular individual wasn't killed by the mob, what happens then?
Well,
that's actually where my brain goes.
I don't think I don't think he would throw them in until he knew the crowd was ready to go after him, though.
That's true.
Because
so yeah, you're gaming the system there.
Right, you really do, and you could see examples of that throughout history of different dictators and whatnot. They will stir the crowd up first, and either leading in chants or anything else, and just move the passion of the people before pushing out whoever it is that they're going to get the mob justice for or whatnot.
Yeah, and that plays into the concept of mob mentality as well. I mean, mob mentality is a very scary, very dangerous thing.
Right. So
could it be that Calus is testing us to see if you can survive the mob? And if you can, then you are the stronger being and you can withstand future villains that we'll be facing.
Like with the menagerie?
Yeah.
I think there's aspects of that in all the different things he's had us do for him. Because the one thing that Calus does really well is he utilizes others. He has all the different shadows and whatnot over the years, and in some respects we're the new shadow, right? Even though we're not necessarily accepting any contract, we've just been dubbed this, and he's going to use us until we burn out and then move on to have somebody else. But as long as we prove useful to him, I don't think he's going to stop using us in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and I would agree there.
Yeah. It almost feels like he needs us to fight bigger demons that we'll be fighting hopefully this fall, right? Because we're going to be going back and facing a reprised version of Crota, for example. And I'm wondering if we've been tested and everything leading up to fall will be a test to determine how strong we are as guardians and what we're capable of doing and who's the strongest of the guardians to be able to take on these challenges.
I mean, that's just kind of the sword logic then, right? So you prove your strength through contest and surviving contest.
Well, it almost feels like that's how it's been for quite some time now with the Dredgen, for example, the Drifter. It feels like we're being constantly tested through the battles of Gambit. And then even with Lord Shax, we're always being tested through Crucible battle.
That's true. All right. So we've talked about kind of his ascension to power a little bit. Do we want to talk about the actual Midnight Coup and the revolution that happened towards his exile? Now, I say revolution because it's in some respects a giant revolution out of his reign and whatnot. But do we want to kind of lead into that a little bit?
Yeah, I think actually that the concept of mob justice kind of gives validity to what was being done in the Midnight Coup.
Okay.
Because here's the problem with mob justice, and this is it's interesting because if you see this in the Midnight Coup, Gaul was definitely misled by the consul, and there's that whole storyline as well. But when they were when they led the coup against Calus and they convinced the traitors, the conspirators, all to kind of help them do that. And one of the things that they do is they make sure to exile him at night so that the public doesn't see it. And Calus reads that as, because my children would not stand for it and blah blah blah. And that might be true, but then the other thing is you also have to remember that one of the conspirators was the person that was, or one of the main figures that was specifically there to stir up the crowd. He was actually against Calus.
Right.
And so, yeah, and so there's an interesting component there that, you have to start looking at. Mob justice is all great and good for one or two people, but it's also it's a very dangerous double-edged sword, because the mob is very fickle. They don't. I mean, it's mob mentality. Mob mentality is not a constant thing, and the problem with bread and circuses is when you run out of bread or you don't have a circus, they're going to turn on you. So it's a non-sustainable model, basically, is kind of where I kind of come from. Now, whether or not that's the inspiration for the Midnight Coup, I am not going to weigh in on this, because Gall kind of clearly points it out that he viewed basically Calus as being too soft. He viewed him as being no longer the Cabal.
So the guy that you were talking about that stirs up the crowds, the celebrant. His name is Adel Moli Imoli.
Yes, he was the one that
makes me want to go Moli.
Yeah, he's the one that Rule stabbed in the back with a harpoon and got to jet ski through the marketplace with. Which is a hilarious story, or not hilarious, but very entertaining read if you have not already read the Shadows assassinating the various conspirators. Rule gets really a good number of them.
All right. So the Midnight Coup itself, though, how many conspirators did we decide that there were? Because there was Gall, the daughter, Molly, Consul, the bodyguard. There was like 7 or 8 of them.
Yeah, there's technically 8. There's technically 8. So there's the bodyguard, who is Lictor Sheotet. The scientist was the Scion, the freeborn Otsot.
Otsot, yeah.
And then the celebrant was Adale Amoli, the Everjoy. The general, the Evoket general, Umanarath, primus of all the legions.
Which she was the one that kind of convinced the daughter.
Correct. She is the one that was super paranoid about external threats and convinced Iskaal of Fantor, which is the confidant. Or no, sorry, Kayatol, the Princess Imperial. She was the general, taught Kyatel how to become a star pilot, as well as basically convinced her of her paranoia. And then the confidant was Iskael of Fantor. He was the tea salesman that Calus favored. And then you had the consul, whose name was Iago, and then Dominus, which is Gall.
Iago. How fitting.
And then within the book, technically 1, 3, or so, the ones that we have hard confirmation that are dead are the bodyguard, the celebrant, and the confidant. And then obviously the consul and the dominus are dead. Technically, if you look at the imagery of the limited edition Cabal booklet, there is a common theme with the first 6 that we had mentioned there, and they all have kind of like this little logo on them.
It's the Leviathan logo with 2 slashes through them.
Yeah, I kind of argue that that's kind of an indicator that the hit list has been, that the contract has been completed on them.
We don't have confirmation of that, but
we don't. But if you also look at it, it's a full picture of all 8, and the only 2 that do not have that logo are the consul and the dominus, which would be Gall and Iago, and that would be at the start of the Red War. Those two were in our system. The others were not, that we're aware of. So technically we have hard confirmation that the bodyguard, the celebrant, and the confidant, the consul, and the dominus are dead, which leaves the daughter, the general, and the scientist. But I kind of think that they are all gone. But again, we don't have full confirmation on those last ones.
Right. Do we want to talk about how it's his daughter that is the infamous scene with his daughter cutting off his escape?
I'll let you take that one because I know that one's a fun one. Because it ties into your question. Ties into your question this week.
Well, yeah, it does. I'm trying to remember what card it is exactly. I don't have it off the top of my head, but essentially what happens is the coup is happening. Calus knows it's happening, and he has an escape plan. He had a back door essentially set in place, and the only person who knew about this back door was his daughter. And as he's getting to it was, I believe, his throne area where he had it. His daughter is there waiting for him.
Yeah, it's on his throne.
And she has is it a bone?
It is a bone.
A bone in her hand, and she crushes it, preventing his escape.
Dino has it in chat. So the quote is, "Could have stopped the coup. You alone knew of my special arrangement, but when I raced to my throne to give the signal, you were there. You sat on my throne with the signal in your fist, and when I reached out to beg, you crushed the bone in your gauntlet. Father, you said, I will not be weak. You mistook my joy for weakness. You understood nothing of who I am." And I believe that's actually from the...
That's from the booklet, isn't it?
The booklet, yeah. It's not an actual entry per se. It's from the booklet itself.
So the reason that Blue kind of reminded of the question of the week is because of the mention of Calus being an Ahamkara. Now, whether or not Calus is an Ahamkara himself or has been dealing with Ahamkara, that seems fairly likely because the concept of a bone in Destiny has been tied to Ahamkara. So what deal he had, we don't know. But he had some sort of plan to be able to get out of any sort of coup like that using the bone. Let's see. So we've gone through his rise to power, the midnight coup. He gets essentially captured by them and exiled onto the Leviathan. He's sent out on this Leviathan with some of his more adamant supporters, and is not allowed back into the Cabal Empire of Torbital, and he takes off. So what happens after that? He goes out to all sorts of different places and start collecting different races to work as his shadows, his assassins, his different groups. Now, granted, the Cabal have been working with multiple races already at this point.
Correct.
But he's reaching out even further now and collecting people on their own because he has Atsat. They have the Science already. They've already been working with. Obviously, the Science is a technically different race than the Cabal, but they're under the Cabal Empire.
Mm-hmm.
He goes out and finds...
The clips were already there.
Mm-hmm. He goes out, he finds the Arcborn, he goes and finds all these different shadows to work underneath him, whether or not they are willingly working underneath him or are being coerced to work underneath him.
They're all technically willing. It's just how freely they initially agreed. Like
now,
go for it.
Does he try to convince them through, fear, or does he convince them through, just convincing them that he's right and they should side with him?
The instances that we have are through intimidation. and actual just flat out threats. The Arcborn, for instance, they're all contracts. They're all agreements with him. So like the Fulminator, yeah, Dino and Jet, he does kind of just show up in a Leviathan, which is a planet eater. So, the intimidation factor is a little bit on his side. And like for the Arcborn, for instance, when he finds the Fulminator, he agrees that if the Fulminator will come work for him as the shadow of the Arcborn, he will leave her people in peace. He will leave them to the causeways, I think. I can't remember the exact term for their world, but he will leave them alone. Rule, for instance, the clips of the Kaga clips, he kills the majority of the clips and chooses which ones to allow to be left alive. And then Rule is part of a final ditch attempt to assassinate him, and he allows Rule alone to make it all the way to his throne room, and basically is like, "Hey, you made it. You're gonna be mine now." Like he's not subtle at all. I'm trying to think. Feltrock. I don't know if we have the story of Feltrock. Feltrock was a scion.
Feltrock was the one who did a lot of like
sniping.
Took out the aerial attacks.
She also has the biggest distaste for Guardians, and she's the one that introduced the concept of Traveler Spawn as an insult, which I love. She was the one that they had to poison because Gaul's Red Legion couldn't get to her. And then you had like Nor, which was a Cabal phalanx who was renowned for a very specific type of shield that she would use to behead people on the battlefield.
Sekris, Baron of Shanks.
Sekris, Baron of Shanks was the Fallen. We're not really sure where... Sekris, we know... I have a personal theory that Sekris had encountered Saint 14 because of a comment that he makes, which also might lead into the Paean of Saint 14 because of the way that the quote lies.
Really?
Yeah. If you read Sekris, if you read about Sekris, he has a comment about how he saw... I'll look it up here in a second. But Sekris has the Fallen, and then the last one that I was going to talk about is Jairus. Jairus is I just blanked on the race, but he is a star pilot, a Ace Defiant, the last of the Ace Defiants, and he was another one that basically tried to attack the Leviathan, failed, and instead of just killing him, Calus was like, "Oh no," and he kind of like pat him on the head, and he was like, "You're mine now. You're gonna fight for me." And it's straight up intimidation is really what it is. I think
that's how he's worked with everything.
Oh yeah. Nor is the only one that strikes me as not having that interaction with him, and I think that's because Nor was already a loyalist before.
So if we look back at the Legend of Acreus lore card that we read earlier, that whole idea of he's basically walking in with the attitude, "I am the biggest, most powerful person in the room. I will intimidate the snot out of you and convince you to do what I want you to do because I know I'm more powerful than you." He doesn't have to actually prove it. He just acts it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, he does have things to back it up, like the World Eater, but...
Yeah, it's kind of hard to argue because he's like, nom, nom, nom. Like...
Yeah, and the Feltrock armor, that's from the Eater of Worlds. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
The Feltrock armor? Yeah, like those are raid pieces.
Yeah.
Wraps of Sekris, a lot of them came in during Curse of Osiris.
Yeah. And the Feltrock, Sekris, and Nor were actually the ones that they were originally released. And then they kind of got re-hidden, and it was like, oh, we lost Feltrock, and then Feltrock came back later at another update, and I was like, yay, Feltrock's back. It's on the boots of Secrus. Here, I'm going to read this quote. I'll let you guys figure out what I'm talking about here. So this is from Secrus, Baron of Shanks. And it says, the fiercest light emerged from the tangle of the web grenade. The amethyst divider on his helmet gleamed with rage. I was gone by then. I'm no fool.
So the frickin', I don't remember what they're called, but the horse had the
toothbrush,
the brush on his head.
Yeah, the amethyst. If you look at the helm of Saint 14, there is an amethyst divider. And the paean to Saint 14 is he walked out into the demon light, but at the end he was brighter. So Secrus threw a grenade at Saint 14.
and then ran.
And then ran because he was like, nope.
Oh man, that's an interesting connection. I mean,
yeah, I remembered reading that, and I was like, yeah, I completely get you, Secrus. If that had happened, I would have been, nope, I'm done. Secrus was also really well known for his cybernetics. So he was I kind of get the idea that he was around at the time, believe before the Great Whirlwind, if I remember correctly. I'm gonna have to relook at Secrus a little bit because I remember drawing some connections with Secrus that were really interesting. But what he was also known for, he was around before the Whirlwind, because he says the Baron of Shanks could even recall a time when the traveler had blessed his people. He rarely spoke of it even to me, and I didn't press him. When one knows what Calus knows, traveler lore is meaningless. But I mention it only to say that he despised your kind with a particular ferocity that most of his people could not muster. So he had a special hatred for the Guardians.
So around the same time as he's gathering all of these shadows, he also encounters the Deep.
Yeah, and this is where you kind of can get into an argument, because this is where it kind of gets murky. I kind of think that he would have encountered whatever he encountered prior to gathering the shadows, because I get the feeling that he's gathering the shadows. Because, I mean, I think that he encountered the edge, the void, if that's the darkness, whatever he encountered. I think he hit that before he started the shadow gathering, because first off, he wouldn't have gathered it prior to the Midnight Coup. He wasn't gathering them before the Midnight Coup. And he didn't ever travel on the Leviathan prior to that we know of, until he was exiled in it. Now, up until the point where he hit the void, he wasn't in control of the Leviathan. And we know from the Chronicon and the commentary, I think it's commentary, the new entries, that he was really, up until that encounter with the Void, he was basically in a tantrum the entire time. He wouldn't leave his room until the Leviathan basically crashed. The navigation systems crashed, and he had to go out. He had to leave the ship in order to fix it, and when he left the ship, that's when you kind of get the two scribes that are writing the Chronicon are like freaking out. They're both scions, and it's really kind of interesting. But they're freaking out because they're like, he's gonna die, and then he comes back, like, I think something. But it was after that encounter that he gained control of Leviathan, and then he uses the Leviathan to intimidate a number of the individuals who would become shadows. So just in the transition of those events, I would say that he actually encountered the darkness or the void, whatever. He encountered that first and then started gathering the shadows, because that's also when he started putting together the hit list of the conspirators.
Yeah, and that would make a lot of sense, because why would he go out of his way to do all this, to go and recruit shadows and to test them on the Leviathan? There must be a threat that's large enough for him to feel the need to build up the armies and the forces to fight them.
Yeah, because again, until he encountered the Void, he really didn't see. I mean, like, he wasn't he wasn't ignoring the fact that he needed an army. He didn't
He just
ignore
didn't
that.
know how to get that power.
Well, he just
necessarily.
he didn't seem to really care. He left that up to the general, and he left that up to the primuses that he assigned. Like when he was in charge of the Cabal Empire, when he was emperor, when the true emperor, whatever, on Torbital, it wasn't that he let the armies like disintegrate. Like he definitely kept the armies there. He just had his focus was on, you know, a different sort of thing. His focus was on the education and the enrichment of the society, the hedon, like the opulence again. And then he gets exiled by the Red Legion, and so then he gets put on the Leviathan. Leviathan, goes for however long it goes. It crashes, and he encounters the Void.
So the entry 5 is what the journal entry that you were talking about.
Yes.
Where they're talking about him coming back. This is
Yeah,
also
that's
the entry
mind
that
of match. Yeah.
Yeah, this is also the entry where it's mentioned that they've not seen him in a physical form since. But
Yes, I know. Oh my gosh. Yep. Sorry.
all right, no, it's okay. I kind of want to read part of this, or I want to read the bottom half when it starts where I haven't thought into this journal since that day at the edge when Calus came out of his observation bubble, overflowing with joy. I want to read from that to the bottom, or have somebody read that. Cornholia, I did put the link in our deal. Would you mind reading that for us?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it would be the fourth paragraph down is where we would start.
Yeah, that's where he says, I haven't thought into this journal.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Cool. All right, let's do it. I haven't thought into this journal since that day at the edge when Calus came out of his observation, bubble overflowing with joy. It's the end, he bellowed, gritty as a girl with her first tusks. It's magnificent. It's divine. It's more than I ever was. Match, it's the end of everything. He frightened me. That day frightened all of us. None of us will speak of it. And we do not dare more than the shallowest meta concert. Least our memories pool into a deadly truth. But in that void, Calus saw his purpose renewed. He guided us to reset the failed navigation system, repair the traitor's sabotage, and retake control. I thought we would hurry back to the homeland, but Calus no longer seemed to pine for his lost throne, or to care at all about the reforms he once championed. Now we wander the galaxy on an Epicurean crusade, sampling a bounty of few furies and rare delights. All the inquisitiveness and avarice that Calus once poured into government, he now extends to his appetites. I have seen Calus feast on things no living mouth can eat. A chill superfilled of helium-4 whirled in his cup for 10 years by a single turn of his wrist. He returned a decade later to toss it back, or a pea of neutronism? I think it's neutronism that should have torn through him like fog. He told me it tasted like the thickest fudge. He is changing. He was here a moment ago. The ruined star shell caught his attention. He loved its beauty, and millions of mirror-bright sails folding up like tissues and wind to fall into a blue giant are very beautiful. Eons ago, someone built these mirrors to hover on the blue star's light, and for a while, I suppose, they lived in sun-fed paradise. How did they die? I asked. That match is the wrong question. He tuned the observation room to track a single tumbling mirror in life. The sail had been as wide as the space between a world and its moon. In death, the rigging had collapsed into a thistle of spin metal and glint. What you should ask is why I am so glad they died. I could not imagine, and I admitted it. These beings were much like us. They did not travel through time or lacerate the universe and crawl into the wounds of yearn for the patronage of any old machine. ... They were creatures of metal ambition, of physics, of life. If they failed, it is the omen of death for us. Precisely, Calus said. Thy generosity. They were grand once. They thought very briefly that they would live forever, and they were wrong. They would be very ungrateful to refuse the lessons, wouldn't they? Wouldn't be. I sat before a fountain and tried to pour out the spirits for guidance, but they would not explain.
An addendum later. I have not seen Calus in the flesh since. So, I mean, it's interesting here because you see so much of Calus's change, his mental change, as well as the noticing of his different match the counselors. There we go. Counselors was the word I was looking for. Counselors noticing his change and his attention and what he's going after. That line, he was here a moment ago. The ruined star shell caught his attention. He loves beauty in millions of mirrored bright sails folding up like tissues in the wind to fall into a blue giant are very beautiful. Eons ago, someone built these mirrors to hover on blue starlights, and for a while, I suppose they lived in sun-fed paradise. And you just see some of these different. You see the physical change. You see the change that they're observing. That is like, holy moly, what's going on with this guy? Like, what happened to him out there? What did he encounter? Who did he encounter? Yeah, Blue, I agree with that. They did not travel through time, the Vex, or lacerate the universe and crawl into the wounds, like the Hive, or yearn for the patronage of any old machine, like the Fallen. You're mentioning all the different enemy races.
And he's also talking about a satellite that sounds very similar to a human satellite.
Mm-hmm.
So these beings were much like us. They were creatures of material ambition, of physics, of life. I just find that interesting. Like, I'm just curious on this mirror that he is looking at, if that's not it's not like one of the satellites that we've sent out into deep space for observation purposes. Yeah, because it says eons ago, someone built these mirrors to hover on the blue star's light, and for a while, I suppose they lived in sun-fed paradise. Okay, so it might have been something. Okay.
Could he be referring to different races that were taken?
At this point in time, within the timeline, the Taken orcs is not within our area yet. Here, because this happens way before.
So, yeah, sorry, a blue star. I just wanted to. I'm just curious on myself. Blue stars are stars that have at least 3 times the mass of our sun.
They're also the hottest stars.
Yes, they are
Or the
super
brightest
giants.
stars.
They're super giant. They're extremely hot and bright with surface temperatures between 20 to 50,000 degrees Celsius. And one of the best known examples is Rigel, which is the brightest star in the constellation of Orion. And that is the sixth brightest star in the sky.
So Oryx, like the taken aspect of Oryx, I don't think the races were necessarily taken at that point. Because Calus encountering the deep happens pretty early on in the timeline. We have Battle of Six Fronts around there. We have Twilight Gap around there. Oryx doesn't even show up until later, although he may have communed with the deep at that point. We know that. But I don't think he's taken all the different groups and used them too much yet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's hard. At least we know they haven't used them against us at that point.
It's a good point.
Hmm.
All right, so he visits the deep. Weird stuff happens. Calus is no longer seen in his corporeal form. Doesn't mean he doesn't still have a form, but they haven't seen him since.
Right.
And we get to the point of the attempt on Gaul's life, which failed.
Yes, it did.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Very much so.
Very, very much a failure, though it does explain where Gaul's scars came from. And we also got confirmation with the new lore that it was not the last of the shadows that were involved. It was just the pinnacle of the shadows, like the paragons of the shadows. So these were the greatest of the shadows were the ones that were sent to try to assassinate what he refers to as the traitor. And I believe that is in entry 8. Hang on real quick. Let me
Assassination of the Traitor. Entry 8. Let's see. Nope. I believe so. This is a longer one.
Yeah,
though. That's within that time frame.
It is. It's either entry 8 or Chronicon 605. Yep. No, it's Chronicon 605. And this is written by another Scion scribe, Shagak. But basically, this is Shagak. This is the one where he basically refers to other shadows. Because at the very end they said, "What?" They asked timidly of the rest of his shadows, those who had not gone to fight Gaul. They still lived. And he basically goes, "Nope, I ruined them. I've spoiled the whole batch." Which I'm like, wait. You're gonna it's just like, yeah, those guys just all are bad. We got a clean house. I'm like, what?
Well, I mean, okay, so we saw in some of the earlier entrants.
Sorry, he refers to them as his Zenith champions. That's the word I was looking for.
Sorry. Right. We know in some of the earlier entries that they were battling in pretty large aerial battles as well as ground level battles. With quite a few of them. That wasn't necessarily the 8 that we know or the 7 that we know of the shadows or whatnot. So there's a few of them, a few more than we thought. They're just not named necessarily.
Correct.
And
yeah.
They're dead. Because Calus got. Nope, I ruined them. All of them. It's like a little child.
I've spoiled the batch. Dump it out. We'll start over.
Right. It's like a kid who's like, he got one fly in his glass of milk and then he dumps out the whole thing, which granted, I get it. Dump the milk out because flies are disgusting, but that's people. That's creatures working for you.
Yeah, well, when you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
I guess that's his own thing.
Pew, pew, pew. It's very telling of his personality and how he views the world and how he views his I guess servants.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so we've gotten through the Gaul assassination attempt. After that Red War happens, what we know in game at the beginning of D2, we actually take out Gaul, and Consul gets taken out by Gaul. We take out Gaul later.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get reached out to by Calus himself to come to the Leviathan. That silly mission that pops up all the time because I refuse to finish Legend of Acreus questline. Not because I can't, I just don't want to. So I constantly get it to pop in my feed. But
yeah, and then he
sends his
recognizes he recognizes that Gaul was met with the traitor's fate. And then that's when he invites us and does that whole thing, which is also concurrently around the time of the Emissary and Sagira. So that would be Curse of Osiris period.
Mm-hmm. And then we have the other Leviathan.
The Leviathan nom-noms the Argos.
Oh gosh. So then also we have the different raids, the extermination raids where we go and take out the pest, the various pests that he has.
I'm trying to Wicked made a comment. I'm trying to remember what it was. I'll have to go look it up. But he was like, so basically they were used as a oh gosh, what is it? A probiotic for the Leviathan.
Yeah. Poor Argos. I say poor Argos, knowing full well that Argos was an infestation. And then you had what was the name of that guy that came in during the Chronosaurs? Yeah. And then now we have to take out another pest problem that he created.
Yeah, he created himself. With what was his name?
Galron.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The giant. That raid, by the way, is a lot of fun. I know you haven't done it, Blue. Have you done it yet, Cornholio?
Yes, I've done it at least a dozen times now. And
Yeah.
It's a really fun raid. It was really interesting to go back to Leviathan, and encounters are really fun. I think that of all the raids that I've played, this one was kind of the most chill and relaxed one.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't necessarily think it's chill and relaxed because it's definitely I guess it's chill in the fact that not all the pressure is on one person. Everybody has to perform at the same level, essentially. Because when you have your pairs and everything. I'm thinking after the very first room when you're doing the I call it the pie room, when you have the 3 sections and you have to unlock each section. It's the treasure room. But
I think this one was less mechanic than the other ones were for me.
okay, I can get that.
Like, yes, there were some mechanics where you have to go and shoot an orb and switch blessings and whatnot. But beyond that, it wasn't really a whole lot more than that, right? You have to make sure to kill or punch the deception when the deception comes out. But once you figure out that mechanic, I feel like it was pretty straightforward, as opposed to like some of the other raids, especially Wrath of the Machine. That one was a lot more mechanic heavy.
Oh, see, I loved Wrath of the Machine. I didn't think that one was too bad. Like, you had
I loved it
callouts
as
you had to
well.
make, but it wasn't. I don't know. I had a lot of issues. We went in day 1 trying to finish it, and we had a lot of issues with that second room. But anyway. So, we've been exterminating. We are his, what is it, Orkin Man? We're Calus's Orkin Man.
I wanna jump ship now with the giant cockroach on the top that bobs. Hey, Calus, I heard you had a problem. Let's clean her out now.
Oh man, oh god. Now I have Men in Black stuck in my head.
All right, boys, let's clean her out.
Oh man. But okay, so we're his exterminator, technically called his shadow, even though I don't remember signing any sort of contract for it. But
didn't you read the fan fiction of the Scions?
I know, but that's fan fiction. And that's the thing that I know we're talking about next time on FFC.
Yes.
Do we want to kind of touch on it a little bit here?
I mean,
as far as an introduction?
I think that would probably be fair because it is kind of a part of the updates from the Season of Opulence, right? Calus is, I mean, the Cabal aren't subtle. I mean, again, that's just the case of the situation here, and they're so not subtle that they have given us basically the copy of like, here's what's gonna happen.
Well,
I do like the constant reference of, okay, you need to be sure to come back and edit this with what really happened so that we are accurate.
Okay, so here's what I want you to clear up, or at least theorize on just a tiny bit. In your opinion, are these just stories written up by these scions, these counselors, to try to please Calus, or is this something having to do with the Oxa machine and there's too many lines that we don't necessarily have a correct line yet?
I don't know if it was. I don't think it's the Oxa machine. Now, that being said, it could be, but I don't know. I don't think it's the Oxa machine. I have a feeling that the Oxa machine isn't on the Leviathan, especially since Freeborn. We had the call out of Atzot and Maya Sundaresh with the one. Was it a strike or was it the adventure where we have to take out the Super Scion on Nessus? I'm trying to remember what that one was. Inside Terminus. Thank you, Vuru.
Kragan or Kargan.
Yeah.
Oh yes, Kargan. Yes.
I keep
the
on
strike
calling
that
her.
I rarely get.
Yeah. Is it a strike? I don't know.
It is a strike.
Oh,
okay. It's a PlayStation strike.
Oh, okay. That's why I've probably only gotten it a couple times.
Well, you're on Xbox.
No, because it's on, but it's not a common one. I only got it because it was part of one of the quests that I was supposed to go through.
Gotcha.
I'm also pretty sure that Inside Terminus was it was taken out of the Nightfall rotation for quite some time because there were some issues with the last boss encounter with Kargan.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Every time everyone says Kargan, all I can think of is Kerrigan. So I'm like, that is not the same game series, and I'm really confused. My brain keeps jumping there.
Let's see here. So beyond that,
but I don't think it's the Oxa machine. I think it's a common, because like the way that the Chronicon and the Confessions kind of are mentioned at being written is they're kind of they're obviously from Scions, and it's a psychic discourse really. And there's also a lot of conversations being captured between the different scribes that are going on. There you'll see different call-outs and subnotes and stuff like that.
Right. Like this subnote, Dino put in chat, a note to the scribe Shagak. Please be advised that although our great emperor knows the shape of the future very well, we cannot presume its texture. So it's not necessarily that they know the future, but...
Yeah, and then there's like one that's the one that I'm looking at right now is the scribe employed at the future date shall please provide additional detail here as the number of courses at the banquet and their contents. Delete this footnote upon the actualization of this history. So it again, it's kind of like it's like a Minority Report-esque type of thing, you know, like they're writing what they think is going to happen, but then they're going to go back and update it to what actually happened, kind of thing.
Well, it's the it's the fake news of the Cabal.
Yeah, and Dino's mentioning that right now. Confessions is Match's diary, whereas the Chronicon is supposed to be the history book. It's supposed to be like, I know I'll get grief for this, but it's supposed to be the Book of Sorrows for the Cabal, basically.
Whoa, okay.
Because but look at it. Look at the way it's written, and it's very similar in sense of it's propaganda.
Oh yeah, but it's not even a history. It's the
history of Calus.
It's not.
It's the story of Calus. It's the Chronicles of Calus is what it is.
It's the story of how he killed all the different things. That's really. It's not necessarily.
But it's the story of Calus. Like, I mean, it kind of is.
I don't like it. I don't like it. Next week, or not next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now? Jeez, when are we doing that episode? We're doing that episode on July 19th.
Yes, correct.
Oh, yeah. That is going to be an episode where you're going to hear me groan a lot. No, my brain did not break with this. My brain just really gets angry about that connection or about that comparison because I view this more as Calus's on the toilet book. This is make him happy to pass the time, to pass other things, rather than a almost biblical aspect of the Books of Sorrow.
The Chronicon is Calus's toilet book.
It is. It's his. It's his. This is going to keep me happy, and it's in short little snippets. So it's like the what are those stupid books called? Uncle John's, I want to say. Uncle John's. Oh my God, my grandpa has one. Anyway. I digress. Oh my goodness.
Calus's bedtime stories.
Right. It's like short stories to make the man happy.
Calus's Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition.
I mean, he's reading it for the stories. We don't know about any pictures.
That's a good point. We haven't seen any of the pictures.
The politics in it is amazing. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh man, just towing that line as close as we can to that rating.
Everybody reads the article.
Oh man. So we're gonna go into who all is killed off in the Chronicon, how they're killed off, because some of them are really interesting, aka Drifter. I actually feel sorry for him. And we'll probably get into some of the crazy theories tied up to more of, is this obviously just propaganda to make Calus happy, or what is the purpose of this? Next time. Blue? Is there anything else we want to...
I'm like...
I know.
I'm like...
You're still broken.
I'm like... It's just... No, I mean... Other than, like, this episode's going to be coming out a little bit later. I appreciate everyone's patience with that. We will have these, I'm hoping to have these out before we take off for Guardian Con. If you guys are going to be at Guardian Con, I hope that we get a chance to say hello. If not, then I'm going to be trying to keep I have a recorder now, so I'm going to be bringing that with us, and we will try our best to kind of get some stuff to either release on the podcast feed, which you'll get through here, or maybe over on the YouTube channel. We're trying to figure out some technical details with those various pieces. But yeah, that's really, I mean, I guess I don't really have anything else here. So I'll let Cornholio, do you have any shout outs or any, could you remind everybody where they can find you?
Sure. You can find us on at thedestinyshow.com. You can also find us on all major podcasting platforms. We're on Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, and also we're going to be on twitch.tv/The Destiny Show as well, starting this coming week.
Woo!
And shout outs to My Name is Bife. He's doing such incredible work. His videos are so awesome. And I've learned a ton of lore from him and from you guys as well. So it's been really great to consume your content and learn about lore in my favorite game.
Oh, we appreciate it. Green, what about you?
Shout outs to those funny people in live chat. You guys make I'm sitting here grinning half the time with some of the stuff that you guys come up with in chat. Not only just helping us stay on top of our game, but also some of the funny stuff that just pops up in chat every once in a while. You guys definitely bring a fun element to the podcasting and whatnot that I would miss. When we record offline, it's really kind of no offense to Blue, but it's kind of a sad, just straightforward event without a live chat. You guys make it a lot of fun here. I love you, Blue, but yeah, it's really, we're down to business. We do it. We're going to defeat the Huns and keep going. But it's one of those things like you as live chat coming in, hanging out with us, make it so much easier and so much more enjoyable to do the show. So thank you guys for hanging out with us week after week. And for those people who just hop in randomly, thank you guys for joining us for however long you can. It's great fun to have you guys here. And there a lot of the stories that you hear us refer to in chat sometimes or in the podcast when you're listening to it later, those happen because of live chat half of the time. So definitely a shout out to you guys. Blue.
Big shout out to Destiny Ghost Stories for their return. I believe
they're starting up again.
They are starting up again. I believe they had one, or I think they had an introductory episode, and then yes. I believe I can't remember. I think their first
officially
one they were
this month.
Okay, is it official? Okay. So yeah, they are starting back up, and then also a big shout out and a big thank you to Scooby and Dino actually, because they have done an amazing job with the timeline graphic, and I'm gonna give you guys a link to that. I believe Scooby says that the best way to find it is on the Reddit thread that he has with it. So I'll copy a link to that Reddit thread for everyone in the show notes, and then also a really good kind of breakdown of the chronology of Calus by a user over on the Reddit threads by the name of Dobby Rams. Has done an amazing job in breaking down the numerous pieces of lore on both the Chronicon, the Confessions, and then also all the armor and weapons, and putting it in a timeline piece of that. So I will link his work as well, or their work as well, because seriously, amazing job on both sides. The Destiny timeline image is immense, and it does a just fantastic job of kind of just laying out everything that we have confirmation of, and that is a big task that has been undertaken by Scooby and Dino, as well as a number of other people, I'm sure, within Destiny Ghost Stories. I believe that's within their Discord chat, I believe, if I remember that correctly. But seriously, if you have any interest in how this whole thing plays out, I definitely would recommend getting a copy of this. but yeah, so just, I mean, again, you guys blowing me out of the water with the way that it has been letting the community coming together and putting this information together in ways that it makes it easy for people to step in that haven't had haven't spent hours and hours and hours kind of putting everything together for themselves. This is a really big deal. And then, yeah, I'm trying to think, I don't think I had anything else other than, like I said, the upcoming event, Guardian Con. Guardian Con, and then there's going to be the Halo convention also the same weekend in Orlando. So, definitely if you don't see it at one of us, I'm going to be at both. So if you don't see me at one, I will be at the other. Just give us a shout out in our Discord if you are going to be there, and we will try to find a time to meet. Green, I think, has a couple times on the schedule already.
Yep. So at this point, we are scheduled not only to do the lore panel at 2 p.m. on Friday with Bife and Myland and the Ishtar team, but we are also signing posters at Issachol's booth at 11 a.m. on Saturday. And you'll be able to find us out and about in a few different areas. We'll definitely be at the convention, like on the convention floor, kind of hanging out. I will try to tweet out random images of where we're at, see if you can make a game out of it necessarily, and come and find us. If you can't find us by Blue has a surprise for Guardian Con. Blue is pulling a green from last year and making it really easy to identify him. So
we're going to leave it at that, though.
Yep. No clues, no hints. I might put hints on Twitter. Keep your eyes peeled.
Bife. Yes, we will be urging Bife to make sure to eat.
Yeah, definitely. And safe travels to anybody going to Guardian Con in general, whether it's us on FFC or anybody traveling from overseas back over here. It's a grueling trip, and Godspeed, and be safe and take care of yourselves. Lots of vitamin C. Laura Mom commands. Take your vitamin C.
But yep. All right. So we will see you guys not next week, but on the 12th for our extra lore, and then that's all I got for you tonight.
And hope you guys have a blast at Guardian Con. I wish I could make it this year, but I'm definitely planning for next year to be there. And it sounds like such an amazing event, and the amount of money that was raised for the children, it's absolutely remarkable. The support that our community pours into such awesome causes. So it's really great.
Definitely.
Boop, 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 boop.
Bye.
All right. Can of glowing worms.
I have a new branding thing, Blue. Thanks to chat.
Oh no. All right, hang on. All right, so do we need to stay on air, or do we need to?
I mean, we could stay on air for this a tiny second. So Guardian Con, Focus Fire Chat, deodorant. Bring sticks of deodorant to hand out to people with Focus Fire Chat stickers on it.
That's awesome.
Just be like,
and here's one for you, and one for you, and one for you, and one for you. And oh no, you need one, and one for you.
You need like 3, because these are like the little travel size things. Yes. And you'll just keep us with you at least for a little while. Maybe only for an hour, depending on how bad you need that deodorant to be layered on. But
man.
Yes, Florida, hot, sticky mess. Deodorant is a must. And please, dear God, do not wear Axe. Fuck.
How many Guardian Cons have you guys been to?
This is our 3rd.
Okay. Yeah, I know Shadow Price went to Guardian Con one year, back when it was called Destiny Con, I want to say. And I've been wanting to go for several years now, and next year, definitely going to make sure to plan the trip out.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun I highly suggest it. And when it comes to like budgeting everything out, God, I buy the ticket as soon as they go live. I buy my airline ticket like 6 months in advance. Everything else, like it's a major investment, but it's a ton of fun. Well worth going.
Yeah, and there's so many awesome creators that you get a chance to meet, and the Bungie devs too. Like that's
Mhm.
Yeah,
insane.
that's a new one this year too.
Yeah, it is. Oh, by the way, we can cut audio as far as Audacity and create a WAV file. And Blue's
Okay.
going to drop the link if he hasn't already in chat for where we need to upload it.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, stream.
Axe is not a great product. You are a
guys
liar.
have a great night. Green and I are going to argue offline for a hot minute, and we'll see you guys later.
Bye.